Welcome to our Sisters Corner podcast.
We're bridging the gap between literature and healing.
I'm Kenyatta.
I'm Diamond. We believe where two or three are gathered, we'll get into everything in between: friendship, healing, and literature. Also link with us on our website on oursisterscorner.com. With that being said, let's get into the episode. Hey
girl.
Thank you so much for tuning in for our final review for Heaven and Earth Grocery Store by James McBride. This is a review of September Pig. I'm so excited to get into this video.
Yes, I am too. We are back in season 2, and it feels good to be back, like we said. And there's a lot to unpack here.
A whole lot. This is going to be an interesting episode.
Definitely.
But everything. Let's just check in. So, how have you been, Kenyatta?
I've been good. Nothing new. Just same old. Yeah. How are you?
Been good. Been outside.
A little bit.
We've been outside together last 2 weeks. 2 weeks, yeah. So we definitely were excited to go ahead and get this final review. We are a little bit unorthodox behind our normal schedule, but you still gonna get this review because this book was too good to pass. So yeah, we can actually go ahead and get into our favorite quotes, parts of the book, or characters.
Okay. So I can start us off.
Okay.
I do have a couple of. I actually had a lot of favorite quotes in the book, but I want to just more so speak on my favorite character. And my favorite character, Chona. Chona Ludlow. I adored her character and everything about her and everything that she stood for. She was a real stand-up woman and just an important member of her community. And it showed in the outpour of love that her community gave to her, throughout her entire life. And it was just so pleasant to see a woman receive that love. And what about you? Any favorite?
Just to say a little bit about Chona before I get into mine, she was really like she was a sister. No cap. I mean, she wasn't officially a sister, but she was a sister at heart. And I think that what's so funny about her being a Jewish lady, Jewish descent, she gave that motherly community energy like most Black women give. I know we've talked about in many episodes that Black people, specifically Black women, though, we put ourselves in a position to take care of, look out for, advocate for everybody else. We are quick to throw ourselves on the chopping block for other people, and also to call out unity, to call out racism, to call out disrespect, to call out being marginalized, like we talked about in our social episode. Catch that episode if you haven't seen it. And she gave all of that energy, and it was kind of ironic. Like, was the author trying to play like a play of character that you wouldn't expect from this type of character, of this descent, but she's advocating for those in her community that happen to be African American, and I just thought that was so interesting. Like,
yes,
you're welcome to the cookout.
And something else about Chona, spoiler alert, so be sure to read the book. But Chona, she was not a mother, but she just felt like a mom to the city. She felt like a mom to the city and the community and the people of Chicken Hill. And it just reminds me of a quote that it has just been circulating lately, just about how you don't have to be a mother you don't have to birth children to be a mother in your community. And that instantly made me think of her.
Yeah, she definitely embodied that energy, and it was beautiful to see because she was a major catalyst, if not the most important catalyst to this entire story, because she did everybody.
Yes.
And just to lastly finish her off, I think that she was a pure representation of genuine love and support and love of community, and everybody was affected by that. Even the quote unquote villains of the story were affected by that, and they could not deny that. That was a so I
just
thought that
very
her,
magnetic.
yes, she was very beautiful. Mm-hmm. Okay, so Malachi. So I'm just gonna pick a favorite character quote. So Malachi and Moshe, I hope I'm saying that right. Moshe, they had a conversation within the story where Malachi was kind of like staring at Nate, and he was looking at Nate, and Moshe called Nate, that's my black person, or that's my worker. I need to get the official quote. I don't think I have the official quote right here, but getting back to the explanation, there is a part in the story where, like I was saying, Nate was working, and Malachi, who was the Jewish man who comes into the city, he kind of like has a mystical type of spirit, and he marks like a few major parts for Moshe, and like just a few different things. If you read the story, spoiler alert, but he says like something about Nate. And Moshe calls Nate his black person or his worker, or I'll put the official thing on the screen of what he called him. And Malachi was like, your worker? You know, he was kind of confused. And he was just like, this country has, summing up this whole scene in a way, this country has made Moshe think that because he has a place of status, he has a business, he gets to employ people, that he owns this person. Like the way his verbiage gave ownership. And
Talk
Malachi was
about
like,
it.
the only people here in this country who know themselves are the black people. They know who they are, they know where they're from, they know what they believe in. And he then calls dirty place. And Moshe is so like baffled, like, what do you mean it's dirty? It's nothing like where we come from. It's nothing like this country, that country. And Malachi is like, no, this is a dirty country. And I love this part of the story because you can miss it if you don't really think about what he means. But he was saying how America changed his character, and how America changes your values. Like, you come over here and you're looking for the land of the milk and honey, the land of inclusion, the land of the American dream. And then once you get some status, it makes you feel like you're an owner or you're better than the next person. And I just thought that that quote was really like the major theme of this story, like greed and capitalism. You come over here and you get a taste of it, and it turns into everything that it turns into everything that you believe in and that you seek out. And unfortunately, the African American community is the one community that's been marginalized out of that wealth. Some of us get a little piece of it. And I thought that was just a beautiful, like, little scene in the book. And I'll be sure to put the whole quote on the screen. But basically, Malachi says the African American community is the only community in America that truly knows themselves. And what's so ironic about that too, and I'm ending my part because I can be long winded. Do we really know ourselves? That it made me think about it on the flip side too, because other people can look at us as intimidating and powerful and creative and beautiful, and sometimes I wonder, do the bulk of us know who we are and the magic and majestic that we hold? I don't know.
I mean, I think like with anything, that is almost like a 50-50. Some of us know and some of us don't know and don't care, honestly. But I do feel like we're getting back to those things that we know to be true. Um, like Malachi said, the black people in America know who they are through all the things that have happened and all the oppression and systemic systems put in place to keep us down. I think that we are getting back to that.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're getting back to realizing truly who we are.
I agree.
Some of us. Some of us.
I agree. And those two things were really cool. Shout out to James McBride for, this gem. It's really a beautiful story. That translates so much into today's life today and the different things that we go through. So I
Yes.
guess, and was there anything else you wanted to include in our intro? And we can pop it off and go and get into this final review.
No, let's get to it.
Okay. All right, final review. Also, if you come this far, we thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on your notifications to get every time we upload. Let's get into the final review. All right, so of course, we do have this final review marked off with some subject matters. We probably are going to go to a lot of different subjects because this story was so rich with so much information. Once again, this is the Heaven and Earth grocery store by James McBride. Our theme this month was greed and capitalism. So I guess we can pop it off with the most important theme of this story was community and solidarity. You see from the very beginning that Morshay and
Mosha.
Moshi
Mosha.
Mosha Mosha. I'm saying Moshan. Moshan, but Mosha. Mosha, he comes over. He knows that he's trying to establish his wealth. Coming over from the old country, as he calls it, and he wants to establish his wealth. He figures out, I'm going to get into the theater business. I'm going to get into booking bands and booking shows, and it starts off with him having this big show. He invites all the Jews out. They come out. They have a good time. He ends up marrying Shona, and a gem from the start. He knew, nobody else knew, but she starts to reveal her true personality. So I'm going to start it off with one of the questions that we did pick that goes along with community and solidarity. Of course, that will lead us into different points, but here we are. All right, and I'm looking at my notes beside me, y'all, because but Moshe disintegrates the local theater. Hold on. Moshe disintegrated the local theater by booking black entertainers for black audiences, and McBride writes in detail about the famous acts that played there. How courageous do you think Moshe had to be to do this? Have you ever tried to change the traditions of a place or an organization?
I think that's a really good question. And from my perspective of Moshe, I think he was more so in it for the money.
Mm-hmm.
The idea that I have of Moshe is that, we know he came from Romania and he escaped to the States to live a better life, and he was a kind of go with the flow type of guy. I don't think it was, of course, I do think it was courageous just booking them, because black people couldn't even go to doctors in the 20s and 30s. They had to travel miles and hours to different cities. But I don't think it was an act of courage for him as much as it was him collecting a check.
Yes, I do agree.
That's how I feel about him.
No, true. I agree, because if you notice in the story, when he has any idea about including the African American community or going against the grain, he has any idea about going against the grain or against the Caucasian community, he runs it by Shona, and Shona's like, why is this even a question? It's kind of like, in a way, she would say things to make him kind of feel like, are you dumb? Are you are you are you dumb? Is this a real question? Because she was like, well, why wouldn't you? The African Americans' money is the same as the Caucasians' money. The African talent is the same as the Caucasian talent or the Jewish talent. Why wouldn't you include them? And I think that I agree with you, because he decided to do it because he saw how much the African American community wanted to enjoy themselves. They wanted somewhere to go without fear of discrimination or violence against them. They also wanted somewhere where they were able to show their talents and vibe with each other, build community, of course, because everywhere we go we want to build community. Listen, a color
Yes.
it's in our DNA.
Where 2 or 3 are gathered.
He is in the midst. Okay. And I think that I agree with you. He did it for the money, and he had to be encouraged by Chona to see the value of it. I don't think it disintegrated his theater though. Like the question said, I don't think it disintegrated his theater. But I know that in that time, most places, if African Americans were included, it means that it was a lower level place because most things were segregated.
And now although I do feel like he was in it to collect the check, I do think it was still powerful for his wife. He adored his wife. Moshe loved him some Shona, and I do think that kind of speaks on the importance of her as a person, as a woman, as his wife. But I do feel like his act of it was more so to please her and to collect the
Yeah.
check. For sure.
Because with them asking, how was he so courageous to do so? Well, you know what? He wasn't courageous if we think about it, because he ended up allowing the Caucasians to have, was it another day? Or they could bring, like, he let them have a whole day where all of their bands could come to satisfy the people, the Caucasian people who were also members at his theme and stuff like that. So he allowed them to have like a whole, I want to say it was a whole like night or weekend where their band, even though he hated the bands, he said how untalented they were. No shade, y'all, no shade. But he said it, I didn't. But he said how untalented they were, and then he still let them play.
Because if you're black, you're white, I don't care. The money's all green. Put it in my hand and have a good night.
But yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and really like taking a pause on different things that he did for the community by allowing black people to do certain things, either hiring black workers. Um, he definitely wanted to align himself with the Caucasians, because he said multiple times how he was ready to move from Chicken Hill because a lot of the Jews were moving.
And something else too, with him being with him being an immigrant, he was technically considered an outsider. And I feel that you didn't hire black because you thought that was best. You didn't have any other options.
Yeah.
You didn't have any other options. The community that you wanted so bad to be a part of, I don't think they would have come to even work for you because of who you are. So.
And I think that mindset is definitely revealed clearly in Doc Martin's part of the book, where regardless of your statue, regardless of how much money you get, how many accomplishments you have, how many things you gross in your time of coming over to America, him as representation of the Caucasian community still had the same mindset. You're still a foreigner to this great land that's owned by the white man. So I think that I love how this book was written, especially when it goes back to, hold on one second, when it goes back to community and solidarity. There was never any type of solidarity when it came to Doc Martin and his representation of the Caucasian community. You would, even if you sat at the table with us, you still weren't with us. You just found a seat and happened to land at this table. You still worthless. And that was like crazy. Like, seeing his mindset was crazy.
Seeing Moshe's mindset was crazy?
No, Doc Martin. The parts
Oh,
where he like, because it
Doc
was
was
the
terrible. I
yes character
despised his
who.
character. Just everything about it I was not a fan of. And unfortunately that is how a lot of people feel. You get into certain career fields, and when you go in with this biased mindset, this prejudice, this racist mindset, you're no good to anybody. You are
Hmm.
absolutely no good to anybody. And you're a friend to none. You're a friend to none, and everything you do is strictly for yourself.
Yeah,
He
you're
really
right about.
frustrated me so much in the book. Like, I was frustrated with him.
Okay, so the I'm gonna give you an example of me saying that his mindset never changed. It was the character. He was the town's. Was he the mayor, or he was not the mayor?
Are you talking about Gus? He was over like the water department, and his family had a few businesses and things.
Oh, that was him. But yeah, so picking up at Gus, I was gonna make the point about Doc Martin, his mental disgust of Gus, even though Gus had worked his way up and his family, had a
Okay, so we're staying along the lines of community and solidarity right now, and I have a question for you.
okay.
Okay, so Dodo, we know he is a deaf boy from Chicken Hill who needs help, and the assistance that Nate and Shona provide. Why do you think those two were the ones who stepped in to help Dodo? And do you think they should have done anything differently? Why do you think that Moshe and Addie, I'm sorry, what do you think Moshe and Addie could have done to keep Dodo safe? Or do you think that his discovery was inevitable?
Um. Okay. So I think that. So the first question was why Nate and Moshe were the ones to do it. I mean, not Lord. Why Nate and
Nate and Shona,
yeah.
why do
They
you
were the
think
ones
they were
to
the first two to step in and provide assistance for Dodo?
answering the first question. I believe that Nate and Shauna were the ones that stepped up because in the story they were the number one and two people who knew themselves.
Yes,
And
for sure.
their word was law. If what I say I'm gonna do, that's what I'm gonna do, and what I say I'm not gonna do, that's not what I'm gonna do. And everybody that I care about, which is pretty much everybody for Shauna, but everybody that I care about and everybody that I stand for, I'm gonna go handle what I gotta handle for them. The only difference to me between Shauna and Nate was Nate kind of hesitated in a way. He
You think so?
yeah, because remember when they said that he had gone down, they had sent Dodo to the place or whatever once he got captured. So I'm gonna say this: Nate, he jumped on the ball before Dodo got captured when he asked Moshe and Chona to watch him or protect him or whatever or hide him. He jumped on the ball with that one, but once the authorities had got Dodo, he kind of hesitated. Like he knew he wanted to get him out, but he was like, he kind of hesitated. I don't think Chona would have hesitated if she wasn't sick. If it hadn't happened how it happened, she wouldn't have hesitated. She would have been on that. Okay, she would have been down at the hospital the next morning. And I just think that goes to show the sense of powerlessness that African Americans thought that they had when it came to authority. That's one thing. Now,
Mm.
I do think that I think that they both. I was not surprised that it was those two who advocated the most and led the way when it came to protecting him. I think that if Moshe and Addie had have helped more, they could have developed a more fail-proof plan to keep Dodo safe. Because from the jump, Moshe was like, he gonna stay down at the theater. I'm gonna light the stove. He good. Hands off approach. Addie was like, that ain't your business. So it's kind of like if you look at the person's character, you can see why they chose the route. They kind of left. Moshe, he was scared of the authorities. He didn't want no smoke. So I see why he didn't, but I do think that yes, Dodo would have had a better experience and been kept safe. I'm not gonna say it would have been inevitable that he would have got caught, but they would have had a better chance of keeping him hidden longer for the authorities to decide, like, okay, we ain't gonna worry about it. Yeah. So that's my thought.
Okay. I like that. I'd never thought about Nate being hesitant as in the sense of, hopelessness or powerlessness. I mean, I do get that, but I more so was thinking about it as in coming up with a plan to see him out.
Yeah.
Coming up with a plan. I thought he was slow in action because he was, trying to come up with a fail-proof plan, like you said. I never considered that, but it does make a lot of sense, but given his history with authorities. So I definitely get that. That was a really good answer.
I think the thing that put the fire under him was knowing that it was the Son of Man that was at the facility. Like when he found out that, okay, this is the person that's there, maybe he did know him. Well, it's to be, speculated that he did know who the Son of Man was from his old city personally. But I think once he heard that experience of the Duck Boy, it was like, okay, yeah, it's no more time to wait. We got to get this popping now. But like if he wouldn't have had that experience and the lady wouldn't have come back from so many characters, Jesus. The lady wouldn't have come back from the facility, he wouldn't have moved as quickly as he would have as he did before.
Okay. The worker that came to have pie with them. Okay, gotcha. There are a lot of characters. Well, there were a ton of characters.
I got the list right here. The list is in our notes. I'm looking at the list like it's a lot. It's a lot of characters in this book, and the fact that to get a piece of each of their minds was so. I enjoyed it. Because, a lot of times when we do reviews, we be like, I wonder what such and such was thinking. I wonder what,
There was no questions left to ask. I'm happy to hear you say that, though, because I know this book, really great book, but I do feel like it was a slow burn, and I know I enjoy slow burns, and you don't. So I really like to hear you say that you enjoyed the book, because it was so filled with information, and the backstory was very thorough. There were literally no questions left to ask, because the author did such a great job at giving us all of the details that we could even think of.
Okay, so since we touched on, but yeah, I agree, and at the beginning I was telling you like, at the beginning it was
I know
it was rough. Part one, I was like, damn. Hey, I'm gonna stick in there. I'm gonna try to stick in there. It was cool, but baby, once we got to part two,
let's get it.
Listen, right into it. So, if you're listening to this and you have not read the book and you are inspired to read the book, the first part is slow. But it's important. Okay. Like one of the questions does ask this, and we're gonna get to it, but it's important. The first part, but it just took a long time. It took a minute. Okay, so I'm gonna go to another question. Just since we touched on the Son of Man, let's just talk about him and Doc Martin's character. As far as character as a person. Okay, the Son of Man is a sadistic attendant at Ward C1 at Penhurst. That's the facility that the character Dodo was sent to because they said that he was like mentally challenged, basically just because he was deaf, but he wasn't. They just didn't make the effort to communicate with him because he was African American, and it was an example of what happens to African Americans and people of color during their time who either had a mental illness, some type of disability, or just were misunderstood. So yeah. What similarities to or differences from Doc Roberts did you see in him? Are they both evil in the same way? I think I said Doc Martin or something.
I think so too. We ready for it to get cold so bad.
Ain't it?
With the boots.
My brain together.
I feel that Doc Roberts and Son of Man are both evil in the same way. When you have a need for power and a need to control things, and when you have a position of authority, you know that is leadership isn't to be taken lightly.
Yeah.
And both men were in positions of power. Like we see, Son of Man, he was in charge over the C1 ward. And they abused their power. They abused their power and they took advantage of vulnerable people. Like Doc Roberts, you tried to you essentially sexually assaulted a woman with the. I did a little research and I don't know if they mentioned it in the book, but she actually had polio. Chona had polio. Mm-hmm. You assaulted a disabled woman. Mm-hmm. You sexually assaulted a disabled woman, and the same for Son of Man. You sexually assaulted vulnerable patients in the facility. That is, I don't know. There's no turning back from that. They are evil in the same way, and I didn't see any good in either man. I didn't see any good.
I agree, and I this is how I disagree on disagree. I think that they both were evil. The only difference in the character,
Doc Roberts knew he was wrong.
No, I'm gonna say this. No. The only difference between the character description to me was Doc Martin knew he was wrong.
Doc Roberts
convinced himself that he wasn't wrong. Son of Man, he knew he was wrong, but he didn't try to convince anybody. You know what I'm saying? He knew what he was doing was a power trip. You know, somebody who's on a power trip, they know that it's technically wrong to the next individual or harmful to the next individual, but it's satisfying to them. And Doc Martin, he kind of, you can see that his mental soothing was to convince himself that he was a good person, and the things that he was doing was a result of how he was treated by X, Y, and Z. I don't think we got a chance to see clearly into Son of Man's mind. Maybe that's one of the characters that we didn't really get to dive into the backstory. Kind of like
I've seen what I needed to see.
Listen, it was like a little speculation about his childhood from Nate's story, but we don't get a chance to really get his mental breakdown. But Doc Martin, he convinced himself that the things that he was doing either were mistakes that were a reaction to other people's choices, or he just wasn't wrong. And I think between the two, because Son of Man was just pure evil. He was pure evil. And Doc Martin, I feel like he could have been saved. Maybe. I think he could be saved. He just convinced himself that he was a white man, he was of power, he was of great value, and the choices that he made had a positive impact on somebody or something. So I don't know. I don't know if he was worse. He just felt like he was good. He convinced himself that he was an honorable man.
And that was only because of his position in the community. Like, of course, you're a doctor. You can be seen as, this prestigious career, this upstanding member of society. But I I didn't get that, because I feel like, and I do agree with what you're saying. Like, he definitely convinced himself that, or he attempted to convince himself that he was right, and he even went as far as taking it back to when they were kids and Shona turned him down. So I feel like wrong. I feel that they're still the same, because if you have to do all of this convincing, we just gotta cut it. We just gotta stop. And he never did that. He never did that. I don't know what event or what thing could have taken place for him to change other than the outcome, but I did not like their characters, and I felt that they were just evil men. Because you making the decision to still do these things, and you know they're wrong, like, you're still in the wrong. Like, you knowing it, to me, you knowing it makes it worse.
Yep. And I think too, just before we go to another question, just leaning into the social injustice, both of these people, and I think that this comes up in another part as well. But both of these people, well, I'm gonna say this comes up for me in the one of the big points that I learned from this story, and we'll at the as we do our summary. But these two characters represent the types of evils in peoples of color's community, and we don't speak up about them really in human community, but specifically people of color, because of this story. People of color community, that they're causing active harm in the community. There are people, places that the evidence is there, the people know about it, you have victims who are still alive and well, and they still are not being held accountable.
Did he do it?
Did he did.
No. That was a low blow, Kenyatta.
He
That was definitely a low blow. But
got
I'm glad you said that, because we talked about this topic came up so much, just about how this this story is relevant to today.
Yeah.
Like, there were so many similarities. Like, if the book hadn't said the story started in 1972, but it was ultimately about, the 20s and 30s, we would not have known.
Mm-hmm.
We would not have known. And yeah, unfortunately, this is the result of people not being held accountable for mishandling people and taking advantage of vulnerable people.
Yeah.
So sad.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not a problem for other people in the community until it's a problem, until it's at their doorstep. Because everybody knew this. None of this was new information. We even saw that with the Son of Man. I can't think of the nurse's name, but when she was at Paper's house and they were having just a meeting and everything, eating the pie or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
they knew that Son of Man was an evil man for a long time. It's just when you have people in certain positions, you are made to feel that you don't have any power, which obviously is not true. And it just really speaks on what a real community should look like.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I was thinking about, as you were saying that, along with the nurse, it was the mom of um, I, hold on.
What's her name? Bernice, with all the children?
Not Bernice. It was. Hold on. The guy who owned was it the store? Or the no, he owned the elite.
His sister.
Huh?
His sister.
Yeah. Oh yeah, his sister was Bernice. What was his name? Let's take a moment. Let's take a moment to figure it out. I'm looking on here, girl. Is this man? When I say it's so many characters, I'm looking like, which one is it?
I know. Hold on, give me a second. What is his name? Fatty.
Is it down the list or is it up the list?
Are we talking about Fatty?
Yes, Fatty. Okay, and then Fatty's friend was that slapped Fatty and knocked the tooth out. Okay, hold up. Enzo. Enzo. He was the one that
Big Soap. That's his name. That's how I remember him. Big Soap.
yeah, Big Soap. That was okay. His real name was Enzo, and then his nickname was Big Soap. Okay, so Big Soap's mom. We finding it. I'm finding it. Hold on. There's a lot of people in here. Wait a minute. Fioria for Fioria. Wait, Fioria. 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 That's
Mm-hmm.
You know, she was the one that was also SA'd by Doc Martin because she got scared when they said what happened to Chona at the store.
Which means they already knew.
That was my point. That I would thank you for joining my TED talk. It took a minute, but she already knew, and I think that this adds on to my point that people who are widespread abusers within our community, we have to not let fear cripple us to the point where we cannot even speak up for ourselves for the next person, because what has happened to us has already caused this harm. But and we said this over the weekend, like, imagine the things that I'm called to do, even if it's coming up against an abuser, to save the next person. Because a lot of this could have been avoided or revealed, just so it can be known, like, this is the type of person that he is. Keep him away from, women. Protect yourself. If you need any help, he ain't the one to go to.
But that also, I mean, I do agree, but we also have to remember that in that time, they are, minority women. They're
not believe.
Black and Jewish and Italian women, they wouldn't have been believed anyway. I feel like this is one of those things where the only option, this sounds bad, the only option for Doc Roberts was street justice.
Period.
Because if she was startled when your name comes up.
Yeah.
There's something about you.
Yeah.
This isn't your first time doing this. This is just the first time that somebody else knows about it.
To witness it. Mm-hmm.
And it just so happened that the person that witnessed it was a boy that was deaf. And then after, everything happened, he then fell off the top of a building and broke his limbs. So that's why he even went to Pennhurst in the first place. So, lucky for Doc Roberts, he can continue his cycle of abuse on the community.
Yeah.
So disgusting.
But I think that that had to definitely be handled in the way that it was handled. Speaking on
no other way. The police were his homeboys. It was only, that's today things get covered up, and I know the person who did it, so I'm going to overlook their abuse and their just wrongdoing. So yeah, what happened had to happen.
It also, so another question, just linking with social justice, and pretty much like, at the end of the about Doc Martin as well. At the end of the story, at the end of the novel, you learn how the skeleton in the first chapter. This is why I said the first chapter is important. You learn how the skeleton in the first chapter got in the well. Do you think that person whose skeleton it was he deserved? Hold up, wait. Do you think the person whose skeleton it was got what he deserved? Do you think other characters in the novel did? Yes.
I
I think this is the perfect segue from Son of Man to Doc Martin to talk about this.
no, true.
And
True.
they both did. What
Yes.
should have been.
I hate to feel like this. I hate to feel like I am, I have to do a disclaimer. Um but yes, I do.
Mhm.
I do think he got what he deserved. He was a terrible person. Anybody that takes advantage of vulnerable people,
Mhm.
cut him out. Cut him out. You got what you deserved, and you should have been tortured a little bit. Throw a little torture in there. But ultimately I feel like he got what he deserved. And I think the other characters in the book, I'm sure they would feel the same. Maybe Addie was a devout Christian.
Mhm.
So maybe she wouldn't feel the same. But as far as everybody else, I think we're all in agreement. What do you think?
I do. I think it should have been worse though. You know what I'm saying? I think that, you know, maybe both of them should have been tortured a little bit before. Add a little salt to the wound, you know. But I do think that both of them received what they deserved tenfold. It should have came sooner. But it was a great way to see how street justice pays off. Even with Doc Martin, like him falling, he wasn't even supposed. I feel like he just got his karma. You wasn't even supposed to.
He wasn't even supposed to go that way.
Yeah, and then
But
the person didn't even mean to, kill him in a sense. Well, off him in a sense. The person didn't mean to do that. They just wanted to injure him the whole time. You'd have fell in the well.
and you know what's so funny? Now that we're talking about this, and I didn't think about this at first,
Mm-hmm.
one of the issues in Chicken Hill was the water issue.
Mm-hmm.
The city was something was happening with the city and the water. They were paying a water bill and weren't receiving enough water, and just how there was such a lack of water, and it was just interesting to see him die that way. One of the biggest issues in the city is how he ultimately died.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, even with how he talked to Gus and what he thought about Gus, and Gus ultimately being over the water department, and he was fraudulent too. But it was just interesting to see that that's how he died.
Yeah, and I was thankful, not thankful about,
Thankful.
but I'm gonna say this: I was thankful that in these times of need, this is a segue to the next part. I promise. But I was thankful that in this time of need that Moshe had the community that he didn't think that he was, the African American people, and Dodo, he had the African American people and the Jewish community work together to conspire to get him out.
Because you don't mistreat kids. You don't mistreat children. You don't mistreat anybody, but like kids.
Yeah.
Deaf.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. We might have to cut that little gun out, but you don't mistreat children. I don't care. Like, no, children. I don't know. I just have this thing where, for myself personally, if a child is around me, that child is safe, and I would never let harm come their way. And I feel like our community as a whole should have that same mindset. And luckily for Dodo, the community did. They held him down and they had his back. But you don't mistreat children. You don't mistreat children. These are God's children. Like, no.
You are,
Son of Man, you got what you deserve. You needed that. You needed that because you would have continued this vicious cycle of abuse.
Yeah.
I done got upset. But it definitely speaks on how just the importance of community. I feel like over the weekend, you and I, we have conversations like this pretty much daily.
Yeah.
But just seeing the importance of community and how a great community behind you is life changing. Like literally, they changed the trajectory of this young boy's life.
Period.
And I don't think that is to be taken lightly.
So that's a perfect. Thank you for your contribution to the perfect segue for this next question.
Okay, let's go.
Our love and sacrifice section, which of course we know as in it, being in a community, that's what we need. We have to start everything with love and end it with sacrifice, so that the choices that you make and the decisions and the things that you see happen don't negatively affect anyone else in your community. Well, you try not to the best of your ability. But okay, Monkey Pants is the only inmate at Penhurst who befriends Dodo, and the two strikes up an unlikely friendship, one that is literally a lifesaver. Have there been people in your life who've stopped? Oh, sorry. Have there been people in your life who stepped in to help you when you needed it?
Look.
So you,
Well, to answer the question, yes.
yes.
I say this all the time, like I am who I am because of the people in my life and the people that have come and shown me myself. I'm so appreciative for my community, and I wouldn't be the woman I am today without them. And I tell y'all that all the time. When I'm on, we're all on. But I just really enjoy their relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Monkey Pants. Monkey Pants and Dodo, I really adored their relationship. I think it was so special. Like, think about it. Like, Dodo was deaf and Monkey Pants couldn't talk. They found another way to communicate. Like, that is, my God, like, it was so heartwarming to see that I want to be connected to you, that I'm willing to learn something new to meet you where you are. Because Dodo could have each of them could have easily turned their backs and been like, okay, this is too much work.
Listen.
I don't want to do it. I don't have the capacity to do it. And neither of them said that, like, they had each other's back. And I think Monkey Pants gave Dodo exactly what he needed because he was feeling hopeless in that moment. Like his aunt and uncle, they hadn't come to visit him and he had been there 2-3 weeks. And he felt like, this was the end. So Monkey Pants was a godsend for him. And they were a godsend for each other.
Yeah. I agree. I think that they, ironically, their friendship was a representation of how community is supposed to be and how we're supposed to show up for one another. Because, like you said, like Dodo, not even just saying that them communicating was too difficult. Dodo could have said, "Look, whatever happens to you has nothing to do with me. I've already experienced what I'm going to experience. I'm going to keep up with my routine that I've created to protect myself, and you the new victim. You know what I'm saying? You going to get it how you get it, and I'm going to leave it alone." But he knew upon himself, and that's so crazy because the people thought that, he was like inhumane because he had some type of disease. I'm not really sure that made him disformed, but he literally showed compassion and love to Dodo from the jump. Soon as he arrived, like, I don't want you to experience what either I have experienced or something that, that's possible that you can't experience in this horrible place, because I'm here experiencing it and I don't want the next person to have that. And I think that I have, just to answer the question, like, do you have anybody who has done that for you? Like, I have a lot of people in my life who have stepped in and made sure that different situations that I've experienced, if they had some wisdom to offer to better my experience, they gave. Whether it's mothers, whether it's friends, you do it all the time. You pour into me all the time. Your family, my family, and my sister a lot. It's just, I think that it's so important when you can recognize, and I really love this question when I ran through all of them. It's really important when you can recognize the places in your life where people pour into you and they step in places that you may think you wanted in a different way, but what they did was to their capacity, and they made sure that they did it for you. Not everybody's contribution to your life and support and safety and wisdom, whatever type of way they want to pour into your life, it's not the same, and it doesn't look how you may want it to look all the time, but it all holds value. So I really love that about this story as well. Yeah. And I think Moshe he essentially learned that when Chona was sick, like he did not value the African American community. He valued the Jewish community, and he valued the relationship that he had with the Caucasians, and those things were the demise of Chona. And the African American community was the one that came to support him day in and day out, while she was sick, and when she went through her incident with Doc, and before she transitioned. And I think that was a beautiful representation of people who don't have much, but they're giving you what they're giving in sacrifice because they love you and they value you. So yeah.
And I'm so glad you just said that end part, because I feel like when we first started reading the book, I didn't understand the title or the name of the grocery store. I didn't understand why they were named the thing that they were named. But the Heaven and Earth grocery store, it really was heaven on earth for these people.
Yeah.
It really became a safe space in the community when they felt like there was no other space for them, to get what they needed.
And also to feel served and to feel included.
And it was just inspiring to see that Chona had the foresight to know something before it even happened. Yeah. Like, just because you can't see this right now, I see the value in this community. Like, my dad had this grocery store right here on Chicken Hill. Why would I move? Like, it wouldn't serve me to move. Because you wouldn't have gotten the same level or amount of care in any other community that you decided to relocate your store to. Yeah. Man, this was such a beautiful novel. Like, it was a beautiful novel, and it just spoke so much of just love and community and the importance of solidarity.
Yes. And really, to be honest, with our theme of the month being greed and capitalism, the opposite of those things is community and inclusion. Because you can't have community and represent inclusion, but then focus on greed and capitalism. It's just not possible, because you have to make room for everybody when you're doing inclusion. I think that this book was, like you said, it was beautiful. It was an opportunity to look into the past, how the current present is still being mirrored in so similar situations. People are still feeling still feeling cut out, and people are still feeling like they're not getting what they need in certain places. But there are also so many places where community is being valued, community is being built, community is flourishing, love and compassion is being shown amongst people. And it's just, you have to seek out those spaces, and when you show up to pour into and not just to receive. So yeah, I really enjoyed this book as well. It shook me, we even got a chance to see how a community and its work to represent the best parts of the world that we want to see ended up saving somebody's life who went on to create his own family.
And it was just so beautiful to see Dodo on the other side of that. He was able to live a full life. Like, that wasn't Penhurst wasn't the end of his story, and we say it all the time about updating your self-image. We've been on that real heavy lately, but he was able to update his self-image. He was able to take all the things that happened to him and create spaces for people like him, creating the camp, and just it was just so dope to see how impactful a great community, just the impact a great community can have on your life, and all the things that you can achieve when you know you have a community behind you. You know, right or wrong, when the world is against you, you know, like, these my people. Like, you move differently. You move differently when you know that we got cell phones now, so one call, that's it.
Period.
But it was just so inspiring, and it definitely has given me the courage to continue being more intentional about creating this safe space for myself and the people that I'm connected to as well. I loved it. Oh, I enjoyed it so much. I really did. I think James McBride is a really great author. Because the way he put this together,
yes,
I did not, the ending, when I started the book, when we started, I did not expect the ending to be what it was. And that is only something a brilliant author could do.
Mm-hmm. And especially with of the story, it kind of like, we started in the future, and then it was like the story was told like a memory in everybody's account of it. So I really enjoyed that. We've only had a few authors who've like broken the story up into not a chronological order, and just like, you know, we jumped around a little bit, but I really enjoyed how everything was structured and how the story was delivered. It really helped you see the benefit before, in a way, like the, you know, benefit before, and then also getting another piece of the entire, you know, vision, how things can be at the end of, you know, a successful street justice attempt, you know.
For sure. And I think it was also the perfect blend of the type of books that we like. I know you and I, we like some of the same books, but as far as genre, I think this was the perfect blend of history, of mystery, and you know, that's your bag, and just drama, that's our bag,
and romance too, in a way, like love, like seeing somebody love their wives, and love their children in a way, like that advocacy for I'm gonna stand beside you, you know. So yeah.
Yes.
All right. So was there anything else that you wanted to include in our final review? If not, we can get on to our final thoughts of the overall viewpoint of this story and our book rating for September.
Okay, no, there was nothing else I wanted to say. I low-key feel like we just kind of gave our overview of the book.
And you know what? So since we've given our overview, you're right. You're completely right. Let's go ahead and do our rating. So, you know, what would you rate the book?
I would give this a 5-star. I would recommend this book to anyone. I just love the characters. I am a character-driven person. Like, when I'm reading, I want to walk right next to the character because I'm in the story too. So I was able to do this. Like, I was able to be in the synagogue, and I was on Chicken Hill. So I would give this a 5-star read.
Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Our Sisters Corner podcast. Also link with us on our website on oursisterscorner.com.
Remember to submit your butterfly letter. The email will be linked below.
We thank you so much for tuning into this episode, and we hope to see you later.
Bye.